Cameron Lavelle at yourparenthelp.com, and this week we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is math. So, if you didn't know, I love math. What I wanted to talk about is how to kind of do some math in real life with measurement. So, one of my 2-year-old's favorite toys right now is this. He will dig this out of the drawer and go around and pretend to measure things. Now, he doesn't really understand like how to measure starting at a particular point, and then he doesn't recognize all the numbers yet, but for any of the numbers, I'm not even sure. Sometimes he surprises me with what he suddenly knows. But the point being, if he's measuring, he can be working right with numbers. So this is basically a built-in number line, which is really cool. And you can talk about, so you can use measuring tape, you can use a ruler, anything that's to do with measuring length. We can work on addition. This object is 18 inches, and if I put, let's say the keyboard is 18 inches in front of me, the mouse is 2 inches, if I squeeze them next to each other, how many inches is that? Well, they can literally look at the 18 and then count 2 more and say, oh, it's 20 inches, right? Or they can put them all together. So they can actually add with that. Or they can look at this whole desk that's in front of me, measure and say, oh, it's 26 inches minus the 18 inches. Well, if it's 26 minus 18, I might just look to see how many inches are in between 18 and 26, and they might just count. So they're working on subtraction. Or they might start from 26 and count 18 and then see what they land on. Both are subtraction, and then you might point out the other option that might have been a little bit faster. So we can work on addition, subtraction. We can just work on like basic counting, number recognition, right? As with my 2-year-old right now, it's more about just number recognition. And it's not even something I'm trying to teach him. He just keeps grabbing it and measuring things. So then we talk about how long that is and what number that is. So if at some point he'll just get it. So those are it's also really great. Sorry, the other one I almost forgot was comparisons, right? Is this bigger or smaller than that? Is it longer or shorter than this? So they can measure 2 things, and you can say, oh, well, especially if it's 2 things like on opposite sides of the room. You measure this one, you measure that one. Well, let's look. This one was 4 inches, and this one was 7 inches. Which one is longer? Which one is shorter? So we can talk through that, and we can have that example. So we can do comparisons with it. Adding, subtracting, counting, number recognition, comparisons. All the measuring tape, or a ruler, or a yardstick, or anything that measures length. Another one that is super fun and popular is all these cooking things. So this, oh my gosh, so much with this, right? So this is like a teaspoon, tablespoon little measuring cup. I know it looks like a shot glass, but it gets used for this. Or there's the more traditional. These are like ones that I basically have just donated to play. But so you can be using these for just, again, recognition of fractions. Then you can do it as adding fractions, or adding whole cups, or whole teaspoons, if that's what we're going to start with. And then, like on here, there's like all these teaspoons, so you can add 1 teaspoon and another. How many do you get if they're basic little numbers? But then you also can get into all the fractions. So then you've got, you can see there's like 1/4, 1/2, 1/3, 1. So we can say, okay, well, 1/4 and another 4th equals, oh wow, they didn't write 2/4, they actually wrote half. That's interesting. I wonder why. I wonder how that works. And you can be looking at that, measuring that, playing with that. Same with like the big one, right? In this one, you can also get into thirds and adding thirds together, okay? Or then you get more complex, and now you're trying to add thirds and fourths, and is it even on here? You can talk about how you would figure that out. If If you want to get complicated again, now we're talking about like 6th grade-ish math and up. The recipe says 2/3 of a cup, but we're only making half the recipe. How much do we need? So we can talk about how half of 2/3 is the same as 2/3 divided by 2. And that gets a little complicated. And how would I divide 2/3? And, playing with all of that. It also is volume, right? Can measure volume and work on volume. So you can use this to help fill up another object that might be even easier to measure the size and height of initially. And they can see volume, right? Physical manifestations. I'm all about concrete introductions of concepts. So these are like 6th grade concepts that you can introduce with physical objects. The other one that I don't have in front of me that is awesome, and again is like a 6th grade and up concept, is negative numbers can be taught with a number line. Or with a measuring tape. With a thermometer. Sorry, I started thinking about measuring tape as the number line and the thermometer, which also can be a number line. So a thermometer, you can be looking, especially like an outdoor thermometer, so you have like the 0 and then down and then 0 and up. Thermometer for taking your temperature is all going to be like in the 90s. If you have the old school like mercury one that even is a number line, most of us have the like digital, it doesn't help as much. But if you have like a more traditional thermometer outdoors, and it might be worth getting one if you don't have one, just so that you can like really physically show them how something can be negative. Because it's negative from, in this case, kind of an arbitrary, they decided that 0 is here. If it's Celsius, then it's based on one thing. If it's Fahrenheit, it's based on another thing. So in temperature, we can be less than 0. And how much less than 0? If you live somewhere cold, you might actually get less than 0. I'm in California, we don't get much of that. But I can look at it, or I could take a smaller one and put it in the freezer for a while and show the freezer temperature compared to the refrigerator temperature, compared to the outside temperature, compared to the house temperature, especially if I have a bunch of them, or we can do it across several days and write down our notes about how much it's moving. So now we're adding and subtracting along there. We're adding and subtracting with negative numbers. There's all sorts of things that you can be played with a thermometer. So again, physical representations of those concepts. So we've talked about fractions, volume, negative numbers, number lines, comparisons with how much is more and less of any of these, right? Hotter, colder, all of those kinds of comparisons. There's just so much that can be taught with just these everyday objects. So the more that you use them, like every time you see the measuring cup, try to give your child something to do with it that's appropriate for where they're at. Like right now with my son, all it would be is, it doesn't matter what the number is on it. I would just be saying, okay, that's 1 scoop, we need 1 more. 2, 1, 2, right? We're just counting, basic counting. But as he gets older, I can be saying, well, this one is half, and half plus half is 1. So this would be the same as this. Let's look, let's compare. Let's put this half and this half together in this cup and this whole 1 in this cup and see if they're the same. Or can I use 2 halves to fill up this 1 whole, right? So playing with all of that is just really fun, and it's a great way to have concrete representations of real math concepts. So the more you can incorporate that into your day, every day, all day, it really helps your child to really understand math in a very real way. Have a fabulous week, and I'll see you next week.